Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Kent, where our mission is to inspire love, seek justice, and grow together in community. This is a place you can bring your whole self. In the spirit of fostering community, remaining seated, let's turn and briefly greet those next to us.
Are you looking for a blue folder?
No, that was a black folder. It was on this middle stand.
Okay, I don't know. And now, let's take a moment to greet all of those who are joining us via Zoom. Please wave toward that camera. It takes a village to bring you this service. We thank all those who helped today. The music director and religious education director, the volunteer musicians, the tech team, and those who worked on the order of service and the slides, and our greeters. We extend a special welcome to our visitors and thank you for worshiping with us. For those in person, there are green visitor cards available that you're welcome to fill out and drop in the offering basket later. For visitors on Zoom, there will be a contact link in the chat box at the end of service. Also, for those of you who are here today in person, you're welcome to chat with our members after service. They would be happy to answer your questions. If you have a joy or sorrow to share during the service, please fill out a yellow card and turn it into an usher during the opening hymn. If you're on Zoom, there'll be a chance to share those in the chat later. Now, let's take a moment to breathe, to enter into our time of community, and to invite the Spirit to be present among us. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that that's an original composition by Benny. Thank you, Benny, for sharing your gifts with us. The Reverend Erica Hewitt tells this story A few years ago, in need of a place to live, I went to see an apartment. After showing me the space, the landlord took me outside to the porch and told me he'd welcome me as a tenant. I have a couple of rules, he advised. No dogs, that's the first one. And the laundry room is for tenants only, not friends or guests. I nodded my agreement. As he spoke, a car parked at the curb and a woman got out. That's the girlfriend of someone who lives on the third floor, commented the landlord. We watched as she opened the car's back door and removed a heaping laundry basket and a small dog. The woman, the dog, and the laundry all entered the building, even though it had just been explained to me that two of them weren't allowed. The landlord squirmed, making no move to enforce his own rules. I get it, I do. I get both sides of this squirmy situation. It's a hassle to go to a laundromat and leave your sweet fur baby at home. And we all avoid conflict a little or a lot. I hate to be a goody-goody. Actually, I'm kind of a goody-goody, but I feel disoriented when I'm in a new place or situation and can't figure out whether the rules are real or imaginary. I don't mean mask-required stores that don't enforce the mask rule. I also mean other mixed messages sent when a boundary is accompanied by its simultaneous breaking. Like when I visited an out-of-town gym right before lockdown and, while working out, noticed that underneath a sign saying no food, someone had placed a plate of cookies. Boundaries can be uncomfortable. Upholding boundaries, more uncomfortable. On the other hand, belonging to an apartment building, a gym, a community, a congregation, doesn't mean you can do anything you want. If a boundary is important enough to establish, then I figured you'd best prepare yourself to name it out loud when someone violates it, even when cute dogs and cookies are involved. That accountability isn't inherently unkind. If anything, it's an expression of care for everyone else in the picture because a system, a people, a community, is only as healthy as the boundaries it keeps. This morning is an opportunity to reflect on what it means to have boundaries, how our values call for respecting boundaries, and ways we can maintain healthy ones at this church. Come, let us worship together. The chalice is a symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith. Lighting the chalice unites us in worship, reminds us of our search for truth and meaning, and inspires hope and love for a more just world. As Katie comes and lights our chalice, I invite you to say with me our congregation's covenant. We affirm that each life has brilliance, and when joined with others in joyful community, has the power to transform. We pledge ourselves and our resources to this journey. This covenant inspires and challenges us to dwell together in right relationship. We promise to extend hospitality, nurture community for all ages, encourage spiritual growth, honor diversity, and practice kindness. And I invite you to rise in body or in spirit for our opening hymn, number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Today will be a joyful When I think of boundaries, I think of the Giving Tree. Who remembers this book growing up? Let's read it together. Once there was a tree, and she loved a little boy, and every day the boy would come and he would gather her leaves, and he'd make them into crowns and play king of the forest, and he would climb on her trunk and swing from her branches and eat apples. And they would play hide and seek, and when he was tired, he would sleep in her shade. And the boy loved the tree very much, and the tree was happy. But time went by, and the boy grew older, and the tree was left alone. Then one day the boy came back to the tree, and the tree said, "Come, boy, climb up on my trunk and swing from my branches and eat apples and play in my shade and be happy." "I'm too big to climb and play," said the boy. "I want to buy things and have fun. I want some money. Can you give me some money?" "I'm sorry," said the tree, "but I have no money. I only have leaves and apples. Take my apples, boy, and sell them in the city. Then you will have money and be happy." And so the boy climbed up the tree and gathered their apples and carried them away. And the tree was happy. But the boy stayed away for a long time, and the tree was sad. And then one day the boy came back, and the tree shook with joy, and she said, "Come, boy, climb up on my trunk, swing from my branches, and be happy." "I'm too busy to climb trees," said the boy. "I want a house to keep me warm," he said. "I want a wife, and I want children, and so I need a house. Can you give me a house?" Okay, so this is going somewhere that is maybe a little less healthy, I think. So basically the rest of the book is that he just chops down the tree and leaves nothing left. Thankfully, my friend Topher Payne created a new ending for this story, so let's just keep going here. So let me start again. I'm sorry for the interruption. "I'm too busy to climb trees," said the boy. "I want a house to keep me warm," he said. "I want a wife and children, so I need a house. Can you give me a house?" And the tree said, "Okay, hold up. This is getting out of hand. Look, I was fine with giving you the apples to help you get on your feet. They'll grow back next season anyway. But no, I'm not giving you a house. You know, I've seen boys like you pull this nonsense with other trees in the forest before. First it's the apples, then the branches, then the trunk, and before you know it, the mighty beautiful tree is just a sad little stump. Well, look here, boy. I love you like family, but I'm not going down like that." "And while we are on the subject," the tree said, grabbing him by the collar of his shirt, "I recognize friendships evolve over time, and we may not see each other as often because you don't have time for your tree friends. But we used to be real tight, and now it feels like you only come see me when you need something. How do you think that makes me feel?" And the boy took a long breath, and he felt a sour rumble in his stomach because he realized he hadn't considered his friend's feelings. "I bet it makes you feel bad," said the boy. "Yes, boy, bad. I can't even remember the last time you asked me how I'm doing." "How are you, tree?" asked the boy. He sincerely wanted to know. And so the tree told the boy all the gossip from the forest and introduced him to the family of red squirrels that had moved into her trunk. While she was glad for the company the squirrels provided, she was a little concerned about the long-term health effects. of hosting a burrow of squirrels. So the boy called the local arborist, who explained that squirrels don't eat wood and they only build nests in pre-existing holes, so the tree was in no danger. The tree was so relieved, and so was the boy. He loved his friend and was concerned about her long-term health because she had taught him the importance of empathy. And so it continued, the tree and the boy looking out for each other like that, both of them content in the knowledge that someone had their back. The boy attended culinary school, and the tree took courses online and got her certification in small business management. And they did their homework together nearly every day. The boy had become a pastry chef, and together they opened a bakery selling the best apple pies anyone had ever tasted. It turned a profit in the first 18 months, which is most uncommon. Eventually, the boy had a son of his own, and much later, the son of the boy had his own family too. Because of their friendship, the boy was successful and fulfilled, and the tree now grew whiter and stronger, standing tall and beautiful in the forest for many, many, many years, and plus a few more years after that. And as each generation played in her strong old branches, the tree often thought back to that fateful day when the boy asked her for a house. In truth, she would have gladly given him her branches to build one. She would have given him her trunk to build a boat. She loved him that much. But then she would have had nothing left, not for herself or anyone else. And there never would have been a home for the red squirrels, and there would have been no hide and seek with the boy's grandchildren, no bakery with the best apple pies anyone ever tasted. Setting healthy boundaries is a very important part of giving. It assures you'll always have something left to give. And so the tree was happy. Everyone was. The end.
Each week, while we're in the presence of one another, we create a time for prayer, reflection, gratitude, or meditation. Let us enter a period of silence. In the spirit of being a community of compassion and care, where we both give and receive care, we take time to share those sorrows and struggles that are in our hearts right now. If you are on Zoom, please share your sorrows in the chat and I will read them aloud. Katie will light a candle for us in recognition for all who have faced struggles or felt harmed in the last week. May you know there are others who care. Benny and Katie also share this sorrow. Their long-lived gerbil Peppercorn passed away yesterday. So difficult losing our pet friends. We send you our love. Heather and Renee share that Kurt, who is our pancake chef, is in the hospital. Others stepped in, thank you to those who stepped in to help with the pancake breakfast, but our thoughts are with Kurt, and we wish him well and hope that he has a speedy recovery. I don't see any sorrows in the chat. So I will invite you now into a moment of prayer. Spirit of life and love, draw near. Many in our community and the world are suffering. We need your tender embrace to hold our breaking hearts. Many are feeling discouraged. We need your hope and faith that the future can be better, even if that time is hard to see now. Many are afraid of what comes next for our world and for those who feel targeted in our current climate. We need your love to bolster us in finding our courage to continue to live our values. Spirit of life and love, help us remember the good in this world. The people in this room who love us, whatever our flaws, and accept us for who we are. The helpers who show up at just the right moment. The babies and puppies and kittens who remind us there is always the possibility of growth and new beginnings. The prophetic voices in our faith who help guide us and call us to be our best selves. May we find blessings in the days ahead that help shelter us from the harshness of life. Amen. And now we will acknowledge some of those blessings. We'll take a moment to honor the moments of joy and gratitude that have lifted our spirits. And those on Zoom are welcome to use the chat. And I see that, chat ones are coming in a different order here, so let me back up a minute. I want to share the news that Martha Kluth is in the hospital recovering from a stroke. John, we are thinking of you and Martha and holding you, and please reach out to us with whatever we can help you with at this time. And Kurt is actually on Zoom, so that's good to see. Kurt, we're glad you're well enough to Zoom with us this morning. And he's thanking people for helping out today with a pancake breakfast. Becky shares her granddaughter Audrey's basketball team won the district championship last night. There's something to celebrate. In the first service, Simon shared that he loves to write and do math. We're so glad these bring you joy. You'll have lots more of that to come. Dana shares also our amazing young dramatists, Lo, Mary, and Raphael are all cast in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels in Aurora. Ooh, we will look forward to hearing more details about that. Kat wants to give thanks to everybody who helped push her car off the curb and off the ice last week. It takes a village sometimes. We hold these blessings in our hearts with gratitude for the joys that life provides. May we each find a moment of joy in the coming week.
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell that your loving is a miracle, how deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Lovely, Emily, thank you. Our reading from Meg Barnhouse is Sorry, Hun, Not My Table. I love for a waitress to call me Hun. As you can tell, she's from the South. It's comforting. She doesn't know me and I don't know her, but we fit into well-worn ancient categories. I am the hungry one, and she is the one who brings nourishment from the unseen source. When I was younger, I worked as a waitress in Philadelphia and New Jersey. I learned useful things when serving food to strangers. I know how to rush around with my hands full, thinking about 6 things at the same time, which has stood me in good stead as the working mother of 2 small sons. I know that people are not at their best when they're hungry. This knowledge helps me to understand world events. If the citizens of the world were well fed, we'd have fewer wars and less mayhem. The most helpful thing I grasped while waitressing was that some tables are my responsibility and some are not. A waitress gets overwhelmed if she has too many tables and no one gets good service. In my life, I have certain things to take care of: my children, my relationships, my work, myself, and 1 or 2 causes. That's it. Other things are not my table. I would go nuts if I tried to take care of everyone, if I tried to make everybody do the right thing. If I went through my life without ever learning to say, sorry, that's not my table, hon, I would burn out and mean no good to anybody. I need to have a surly waitress inside myself that I can call on when it seems everyone in the world is waving an empty coffee cup in my direction. My inner waitress looks over at them, keeping her 6 plates balanced and her feet moving, and says, sorry, hon, not my table. And Shea French shares this. It's day 23 of summer, and my friend still does not have a summer job. I've been asked not to help, but I feel worried. I know they're unable to make some needed car repairs, so I sent them a job posting. And the next day, I send another, a third the week after. They say no to my offer to co-work. My worry grows. But every time I offer unsolicited help, my anxiety goes down a little. It lets me feel a little more in control over something I have no control over. A year later, we've built more trust in our relationship, and we talk about that summer. I learned that they were in recovery from a chronic illness and their focus that summer was on healing, not working. They felt judged by me. Every time I sent them a job posting, it felt like I was saying there was something wrong with them and their choice to not work. I feel awful. This was so far from what I had intended. As a disabled person, I know how frustrating and hurtful it is when people try to offer help I don't want or need. I know how I have to fight down my own internalized inferiority and reconvince myself there's nothing wrong with doing things a little more slowly or jerkily. I feel so unseen in those moments. That summer, I had missed the step of paying attention to how my offer of help was received. I had prioritized easing my own worry over respecting the boundary they had set. My friend hadn't given me a reason why they weren't job searching, but they had told me everything I needed to know to be respectful and caring in that moment. They didn't want my help. We don't need to understand why someone sets a boundary to respect it. Some kinds of help create connection and meet our loved ones' tender needs. And some kinds of help are about easing our own anxiety. These kinds can sow the seeds of judgment in our relationships. It doesn't matter what our intentions are. What matters is if we're taking in what our loved ones are communicating and respecting whatever answer we receive. Our reflection hymn this morning is number 34. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit to sing, "Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire."
A few years after my parents divorced, I adopted a cat who I named Squeaky. Squeaky had his own opinions about life. He refused to use a litter box, preferring instead to use our laundry. My stepmother strongly objected to this, and she insisted that my father get rid of it the next day. My father had worked as a building inspector, so he took the cat with him to work, and he drove about a 30-minute drive away to one of the construction sites and dumped Squeaky off to a very uncertain future. When we got home that night, there was Squeaky sitting on our couch. How is this even possible? It had somehow done a 30-minute drive back to our home, gotten into a locked house, and was there waiting for us. So the next day, my father took Squeaky to a construction site that was about a 40-minute drive from our house. That ought to be into that, he said, as he dropped the cat off in the field. When we got home that night, there was Squeaky sitting on our couch, looking very satisfied with himself, I must say. That's when we figured out that my mother had been going out to the construction sites, scooping up the cat, driving it back to our house, breaking in to the house where she no longer lived, dropping the cat off. And in doing this, she shamed my father out of dumping the cat, and they had to find a proper home. That story tells you a great deal about my mother. She was somebody who never met a boundary she didn't want to cross immediately. She liked to cause a stir. She generally refused to live any kind of sensible life. Now, my mother was an artist, and back before the divorce, when I was in elementary school, there were times where I'd come home from school and she would be painting a nude model, which I found to be informative. On another occasion, still in elementary school, I came home and I told my mother about a boy who was bullying me. So my mother got out the yearbook and she flipped through to that kid's picture and she stuck some needles in his face. And she said, now something terrible is going to happen to him. You know, typical mom stuff. So, now actually, you know, where normal mothers would greet you with milk and cookies, my mother greeted me with voodoo. So it was a little different. When I was 11, we woke up one day and found my mother gone. And as time went on, it got more and more scary and confusing. Days went by. As an 11-year-old, I was imagining maybe she'd been kidnapped or murdered, maybe she was in a horrible accident, but just days and days, weeks went by. That's when we found out she ran off with her guitar teacher and wasn't interested in being a wife or a parent anymore. She did reappear, though, occasionally to stir up chaos in our lives. Even in adulthood, she continued this pattern with me in my life. She would sometimes call and say, I'm leaving now to come to Ohio. I'm going to stay with you for a 5-day weekend. I told her there's no such thing as a 5-day weekend. You can't bend the space-time continuum like that, just whenever you want to. But she would show up, and one of the favorite things she liked to do when she was in Ohio was break into my father's vacation cottage, spend a few days there. Very unwelcome. One time she started a little fire in the fireplace, not knowing the flue had been closed for the season, and nearly burned the place down. When she was at our home, she would do things like steal. Often she'd steal my art books. They were kind of expensive, prized books of mine. The most colorful memory, I guess, I have of my mother was back when I was producing an opera. It was a very complicated production, and the day before the big gala performance, my mother showed up at my doorstep and wanted to be part of things. So that day before, I was scrambling to put out all kinds of little fires. You know, there were people having conflicts, there were lighting issues, we had a problem with the electrical system, so I'm just problem solving as fast as I can. And while I was doing that, my mother was mingling around, causing conflicts and things with the various people on my crew. So that's when I realized that bringing my mother to address the chaos of the opera was like bringing an arsonist to help you put out a house fire. So I told her, you know what, I'm going to drop you off at home. And she had friends in the area. Hey, visit with your friends, and then we'll go to the opera tomorrow. So I dropped her off, and the chaos continued. I went back to work on the opera, and it was, still very challenging. I got home at 1 a.m. I opened the door and was greeted by a great big cloud of cigarette smoke. And as I peered through the haze, I saw that she'd taken my paintings that I'd done that were on the walls and had covered them with glitter glue, completely destroying them. But then I turned the other way and realized that she'd gone out and purchased some spray paint and had redecorated my apartment with it. And later I found out, this was before cell phones, that she'd been on my phone for hours making long-distance calls. If chaos were music, my mother would have been a full brass band. Well, my mother passed away before Christmas last December. But at that point, she'd largely cut us off out of her life. I would call to try to have those meaningful last conversations you might have with a parent, and she would interrupt me and say, I really want to get back to the TV show I'm watching. She said she didn't have much life left. She wanted to spend as much of it as she could watching TV. So I told her, carpe diem, and just... She also did not want visits, and in her final days, refused to have us come out to see her. She also made sure that she would have no funeral, no memorial service, no obituary, and she'd hired a company to distribute her ashes so that we were not part of that. So this left us with no conventional way of grieving. But I can imagine my mother in heaven with an infinite supply of art materials, with multiple televisions pointing at her from every angle, stealing books from the other angels, spreading nasty rumors about Michael the Archangel, and cats. There would have to be lots and lots of cats. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to my mother, but if I could talk to her now in heaven, I would say, thanks, Mom, for inviting me to your carnival. You introduced me to the arts, which was very meaningful to me. You left me with a lot of wild stories to tell. You made me weird in ways I sometimes appreciate. And at about this point in the conversation, I'm sure she would cut me off to get back to whatever television show she's watching. And I can't blame her because they've got to get all the best channels in heaven. So my mother was a master at crossing boundaries, and sometimes it was delightful. Other times, not so much. She often kept our family divided and in conflict. I guess the low point was when our son passed away, and she used it as an opportunity to spread nasty rumors about us. And this is when her lack of boundaries went from quirky to cruel. So this service is about boundaries. And a lot of life stress comes about when define boundaries. It's actually hard to define. It's things like what you'll tolerate, how much information you share about yourself. It's about how much money, time, resources you devote to something. It's also about how you interact with others without invalidating their identity or yours. And it's about roles. What is a role but a set of boundaries? That's why you might behave differently with your boss than you do with your best friend. That's also why you don't want your brother-in-law to be your proctologist. Totally different roles. Toddlers are a good example of this too. Toddlers are born without any boundaries, and they're miracles. They're beautiful. They're so awesome, but it can be stressful because toddlers do things like climb into your lap and smear chewed bunny grams into your hair, things like that. And so that can be very stressful. Now, in this church, we often begin by singing these words from Hal Walker. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whoever you love, we welcome you. How do we live up to those values while still maintaining healthy boundaries? Well, for one thing, we have a covenant to be with each other in right relationships, which means respecting the boundaries between ourselves and the others. The first three principles in our faith include words like respect, dignity, compassion, and acceptance, all of which are obliterated if you don't respect that person's boundaries. Other religions have found this too. In Hinduism, they have a term called santoja, which means being content with your own life without overstepping the boundaries of others. In Buddhism, there's a term ahimsa, which means non-harming, and it involves a range of things, including respecting the physical and emotional boundaries of others. In the New Testament, Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount, which included the golden rule: treat people as you would have them treat you. You know there's an updated version of the golden rule? Some people call it the platinum rule. Treat people as they would want to be treated. Because what I need in a moment might not be at all what somebody else needs in that similar moment. We want to help people without reducing them or violating their identity. So those are all about setting boundaries toward others. But there's also the boundaries we set within ourselves. There's a saying, compassion without boundaries is self-destruction. In the New Testament, Mark 1:35 through 38, Jesus was traveling with his disciples, doing the good work, spreading his important word, and he took a moment to be by himself, to pray in silence alone, to recharge his batteries. It's that idea of setting a boundary that you can't always be on, you can't always be serving others, you need a moment, and it actually makes you better at helping the others. In the Jewish faith, there's a term, shmirat hanefesh, which means prioritizing self-care and guarding one's soul. Guarding one's soul through boundaries. Buddhism has the middle way. It's the idea of don't give everything away. Don't find a balance in how much you give, how much you receive, how much time you devote to things. Find that middle balance between those things. And there's a Buddhist saying, you can't pour out of an empty cup. Meaning you can't help others so much that you're completely depleted. It actually creates a bigger problem than you started with if you do. I always think of the airplane example when I think of that, you know, those oxygen masks when they drop. You know what some people want to do when those masks drop? They go, people are going to need my help, and they run around trying to help people put their masks on. But they're oxygen deprived. So they're dizzy and disoriented, they're confused as they're trying to help, so it's not great quality help. And then they pass out from lack of oxygen somewhere in an aisle. And then other people go, we got to help that guy, and they take their masks off, and you end up with a lot of fatalities that way. So, you know that speech nobody listens to when you're getting on an airplane? They tell you if that oxygen mask drops, put your mask on, and then look around to see if anybody next to you needs help. So first, you make sure you're okay. That hose that attaches the mask, that's a boundary, because it's limiting your motion to about, are you okay? How about you? Are you okay? And that's it. And in doing that, you get no fatalities. It's another boundary. Let's talk about boundaries within a church. Every church has 3 or 4 overworked people who do most of the tasks. I'm seeing recognition in people's eyes as I say that. You know that saying, if you want something done, ask a busy person? What that really means is, if you want something done, exploit a codependent person. So 20 years ago, when I was fairly new to this church, I was in graduate school. And I was seeing clients at 2 different agencies, and they asked me to be on the board here. So I was on the board in graduate school. And then turned out in my role on the board, there were 9 committees I was supposed to be overseeing. And they had all been vacated by whatever was happened before I was there. And so I had to recreate all these committees, and then when it came time to vote for a leader, they kept voting for me. So I was running 9 committees, I was on the board, I was in graduate school, and then I was doing fundraising concerts for the church, and Renee and I put together an art show here. So, which Reverend Melissa said to me, I think that's unwise. To take on that many things. Here's what I found happen when I had that many responsibilities here. I would sit in a church service, and I would think, oh, that door behind me squeaked. We got to talk to somebody about that. And there's that person I need to talk to during coffee hour about that project. And there's that person who was supposed to meet with me, and they blew it off, and I'm kind of annoyed by that. Right? And what I wasn't doing was listening to the service. Church had turned into a list of errands for me, and it no longer gave me anything in return. So what they found in the research on thriving churches is that you try to distribute the tasks, including inviting new people to take on roles that they might be comfortable with. That level of engagement tends to make them feel they belong here, that they're not just a witness of the church service. Now we get to the most uncomfortable topic about boundaries in church. Occasionally you get somebody who's abusive or disruptive in a church. This happens at all churches. And this problem is solved with boundaries. So what we use is compassionate confrontation. It means you directly confront the problem, but not out of punishment or cruelty or superiority, but out of concern for correcting something. And usually you set a boundary like, you are no longer allowed to be in that committee because it's caused too much struggle. Or we're going to have to ask you to join us on Zoom for a while, and then we'll revisit this over time. Setting those boundaries. And not only do those protect the church, but they also are a behavioral intervention for somebody who may not realize their behavior is a problem. And it gives them a chance to correct it and learn from that. Finally, there are boundaries in social justice. So we do a lot of social justice work here. We are kind, loving people, and we are in unprecedented times. That should be in all caps. Right? Really unprecedented times. Our UU principles are so needed right now. But we have to do it within those boundaries we've been talking about today. So when we encounter an injustice, here's some things we can do. We can acknowledge and express our feelings about it. We can ask each other for support. We can pick our battles carefully. If we get upset about every little thing, we're going to be burned out before there's time to act. We can stay informed without obsessing. We can resist the temptation to undermine our message with overly radical type forms of protest. You know, if we don't like something the president's doing and we go throw some tomato soup on a Monet, people are only going to remember that you threw soup on a Monet. We can resist the temptation to isolate or surrender to hopelessness. We need a robust and informed resistance. We were born for moments like this. Let's get to work. Let it be so, and amen.
Our spiritual community thrives in its shared life of worship, community, and ministry as each of us participates in the circle of giving and receiving. And this is possible due to your generous gifts of money, time, and care for each other, and the recognition that we are all connected. To make a financial contribution in support of our church, you can write a check or put cash into a pew envelope with your name. You can also use the QR code in the pews or the link on the screen. Is there a link on the screen? Yes. And thank you. And to help others in our community thrive, we give to organizations that serve those in need. February's special offering is for the Unitarian Universalist Association's Disaster Relief Fund, which is supporting relief efforts in response to the Los Angeles fires. So with gratitude, we now receive the offering as a sign of our shared commitment to the life and work of our congregation and beyond. As we bring our service to a close, and as Katie extinguishes our chalice, I invite you to say with me these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Please rise and join us for our closing hymn, which is a little untraditional. You can either do the backup chorus with us, or you can try the lead vocals too. We'll give it a try. Here we go.
And you can dance.
You must dance.
1, 2, 3, 4. Dun dun da 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 da. What you want, friend? I got it. What you need, I can help you sure is respect when I need space.
Just a little bit.
Hey, baby,
Just a little
don't
bit.
burn me out.
Just a little bit.
Hold on, sister.
Just a little bit.
I will walk the protest line. Right on my Congress people, stay tuned. Just need to give myself time to be alone.
Just a little
You
bit.
hear me?
Just a little
I
bit.
need to be alone
Just a little bit.
sometimes.
Just a little bit.
R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, gotta take care of me. I will comfort you when you're down. Let's turn your frown upside down. But give me time to lay around. I need that.
Just a little
I
bit.
need some
Just a
downtime.
little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Oh,
Just a little bit.
Oh, I'm a compassionate soul. I will stand for DEI, but I need to recharge my battery to fight another day. To fight another day.
Just a little bit.
Energize me.
Just a little
Then
bit.
let me add
Just a
on.
little bit. Just a little bit.
R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, gotta take care of me. Then talking about you, I'm talking about me, I'm talking about us, giving space to each other.
Just a little bit.
I'm talking.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Hey!
Our benediction is a quote from Sue Johnson, who said, "Boundaries are the sacred containers that hold our essence, our vitality, and our connection to the divine." Go in peace, friends.
It's very funny because your last part of your sermon